words, Adrian, out of my mouth. Surprised, relieved, and so on. I'm relieved too because I got up lightly tonight. I was supposed to be doing carpentry work for my son, my youngest son, which I'll do most of the day. Surprised to be asked, and actually delighted to be asked to say a few words here tonight. A little bit shocked, actually, because there's always the downside to these invitations. So, would you like to come? Oh, by the way, we have a job for you. We'd like you to bring Mahmoud to this function. Oh. So maybe you could somehow grab him. Perhaps you could take him for coffee. It's Saturday night. We want him here for 6. So I'm thinking, pick him up, take him for coffee? At 5 o'clock on a Saturday night. Oh, and by the way, make sure he's wearing a suit and a tie. But don't tell him anything about this event. It took me several days to work out quite how we were going to do this, and I guess because we're such good friends, thank God he didn't ask any skill testing questions like, why? Why not 10:30 in the morning? Why 6 o'clock on a Saturday evening? He was a little bit surprised too. He said, I'll have to check with my social director before I can accept this invitation. And since she was part of the scheme, it was no problem. She also made sure that he wore a suit and so on. So I had to wear one too. I've been doing since I retired. So I have a prepared speech, partly because there's so much for this fellow. A scholar, as somebody said, a member of the community, a very valued international contributor to science and technology, a good friend of mine since 1983, when he was hired at National Defense. And so I'm very pleased to be able to do this evening. In order to make this detailed and brief, permit me to read some of the highlights of his career for you. So, born in Cairo, Egypt, most people here probably know that, where he obtained his Bachelor of Science degree in 1969. He graduated top student of his class. I'm not at all surprised at that, having worked with him since 1983 and knowing the caliber of the individual. That comes as no surprise to me that he would have been top of his class. But that is certainly a great achievement in itself, even back in the late 1960s. Joined the Egyptian Army in 1970, where he conducted research and development on ordnance materials and armor. After his discharge from the military, he received honorable mention for his contribution to the development of new high-speed steels for machining armor and manufacturing, much needed for parts for weapons systems, particularly tanks, armored personnel carriers, and artillery. These developments were instrumental in assisting with military effort before the crossing of the Suez Canal on the 6th of October 1973. And for his contributions, he was granted the Medal of Merit from the Egyptian Armament Establishment. Well done. He moved to Canada in 1974 to pursue postgraduate studies. A master's degree in material science and aerospace engineering from Manitoba, Winnipeg, and a PhD from the University of Waterloo in Ontario. Now, funnily enough, if I digress this a little bit, he worked for the same supervisor that I did. When I came to Canada, my first venture over here was at the University of Waterloo, and working with the same Dr. Chaplin that Mahmoud worked for when he did his PhD, so small world.
Yeah, Waterloo, yeah.
He didn't come directly from Waterloo, however, to the Department of National Defense. He spent a period of time doing academic research at 2 universities in the States, in Michigan, and materials and aerospace engineering in 1981 from Delaware, and then subsequently he had a contract with NASA through University of Michigan, working on high temperature materials. He returned back to Canada in 1983 and joined the Department of National Defense at that time. And he's been working progressively there and with me since then. And mostly due to his efforts, we were able to build what I think is a world-class materials capability for D&D, which has been much needed over the years, because materials are fundamental to the performance of any structure. There's an awful lot of people that can deal with the mechanical engineering side of things, but very few people that can understand why they work based on material science. So he's been a contributor since that time to the department. He is now the group leader for advanced materials and industrial processes, which includes non-destructive testing, material selection and characterization, welding engineering, and engineered composites. So we're going from traditional materials to advanced materials to non-traditional materials to the latest technologies, and applying these to armor concepts and to military systems. He's also worked with me internationally through a number of organizations, ABCA, America, Britain, Canada, Australia, and so on. And another aside, we were in England, and there were a number of people working for the Department of Defense in England, the Ministry of Defense over there, professor this, professor that. I said, well, how come these people are professors? They're actually civil servants. I mean, surely professors belong to universities. Oh, no. If you're making a significant contribution in England and working in this kind of domain, then the universities are very interested in you, and those that are at the top of this end up being a professor as well as being a civil servant. So we came back and we said, oh, that's interesting. How are we going to do this? So because of his connections, we were able to make Dr. Lateef also a professor at Carleton, paralleling the efforts of the British, so that they weren't getting one ahead. So when we went to meetings, we had a professor on our team as well. But this wasn't possible other than having tremendous contacts both academically and in the defense scientific community. So he's worked internationally for Canada, through ABCA, through NATO meetings and so on advanced materials, and traveled quite a bit with me. He's been involved in many key projects, dealing with weapons systems, bullets, the selection of the engines, the criteria for the selection of the engines for the famous Cormorant aircraft that Canada bought. And more recently on armored vehicles, because as a consequence of the situation in Afghanistan, Canada was struggling, like many nations, to have vehicles where we could diminish the vulnerability over and above the equipment that we bought, basically for the Cold War scenarios. So the organization that we worked in at National Defense did a lot of work in terms of up-armoring and working on survivability of those systems. And Dr. Lateef's background in material science and military systems from Egypt was very important in achieving this. He's participated in a number of UN-related activities, assignments in Egypt for technology transfer, under the auspices of technology transfer by expatriate scientists. Specifically, he's worked on 2 3-week assignments at Cairo University to assist with the formulation of graduate studies in aerospace materials. The second was at the Central Metallurgical Research and Development Institute to advise on evolving research in engineered materials, composites, and nanotechnology. And he's organized and conducted several courses in failure investigations and risk management in Egypt. So he's regularly invited to deliver keynote speeches and participate in plenary sessions of various conferences, such as the Egyptian Corrosion Society Materials Engineering Conferences, organized by CMRDI and chemical industries in Egypt. Most recently, he participated in 3 workshops on alternative energy, improvement of the quality of university education in the Middle East, and medical materials for pharmaceutical industries. He's an active member of the National Egyptian Organization for Quality Education and Accreditation as well. During his visits to Egypt, Dr. Lateef is frequently invited to give advanced lectures on state-of-the-art technologies that are organized by the Egyptian Syndicate of Professional Engineers in Cairo. And he is frequently interviewed by the Egyptian television channels and local newspapers during his visits. In Canada, he's a member of the Association of Professional Engineers of Ontario, as well as the American Society for Materials and Egyptian Syndicate of Professional Engineers. He has received many recognition awards from international universities and professional engineering associations. Dr. Lateef was granted special medial and certificate of merit from the Department of Aerospace Engineering at Cairo University for his contribution to areas of propulsion and materials engineering for gas turbines. Last year, he was awarded the Special Certificate of Merit and Medal for his contribution to the science of corrosion engineering and accident prevention in the chemical industries in the Middle East. As an Egyptian Canadian, Dr. Lateef participates regularly in Arab community activities by delivering lectures and holding panel discussions on evolving political issues in the Middle East with specific interest in the ramification of the Arab Spring. Furthermore, he was recognized by the Canadian Islamic Congress of Canada as one of the leading professionals who contribute significantly to the well-being and good standing of his communities in the civic circles. Dr. Lateef is a leading citizen in the National Capital Region. He is well known for his support of arts, music and cultural heritage of the Egyptian community, and in particular, in the Middle East at large. So those were the prepared notes I had. Let me just end by saying that it's been my privilege to be a good friend and colleague and mentor to Dr. Lateef since 1983. He's been a key contributor to the department and to the success of the organization that we built. And the folks that are here today from National Defense are also delighted as his key co-workers to be here to celebrate a wonderful career, science and technology career, to recognize an upstanding international citizen, a family man, as was said earlier, and to thank him for his contribution and wish him all the best in the future in his retirement. Mahmoud, please come and shake my hand as a good friend.